I've never seen someone destroy their own reputation that fast. One minute she was storming across the pool deck like she owned the world, screaming at my wife to get out of the water, and the next she realized she'd just humiliated herself in front of the brand new HOA president. That day changed everything in our neighborhood. My name's Ethan, and my wife Jessica and I moved into Sunset Ridge about a year and a half ago. It looked perfect: green lawns, gated entrances, smiling neighbors who waved when you drove by. We thought we'd finally found peace and quiet after years of city chaos. But peace has a funny way of hiding behind manicured hedges. Ours had a name: Cheryl Thompson. If you've ever met someone who thinks neighborhood rules are her personal religion, multiply that by 10 and give her a gold badge that no one asked her to wear. That's Cheryl. Perfect geometric blonde bob designer swimsuit cover-ups and a permanent expression like she smelled something unpleasant. She was the self-appointed pool police, and she took that title very seriously. The first few months I tried to ignore her. Smile, nod, keep walking. But she had this radar for joy. If someone looked too relaxed, too happy, she'd find a way to ruin it. The HOA had rules, sure, but Cheryl enforced her own version: who could swim, how long, even what kind of towels were appropriate for community standards. That Saturday started like any other. The sun was high, the air smelled like sunscreen and grilled burgers. Jessica decided to go for a swim while I finished mowing the lawn. She loved the pool. It was her hour of calm in a busy week. By the time I showed up with a bottle of water for her, I noticed Cheryl perched in her usual spot, sunglasses glinting, watching everything like a hawk that hadn't eaten in days. Jessica was chatting near the deep end with a guy I didn't recognize. Tall, calm, maybe mid-30s, wearing a linen shirt. They looked like they were having a polite conversation, laughing a little. Then Cheryl stood up, and I swear you could feel the temperature drop 10 degrees. She stomped across the deck, voice already climbing, and shouted, "You don't belong here. I want you out of this pool immediately." People turned. Conversation stopped. Jessica froze for a second, then swam to the edge. "Excuse me," she said, keeping her voice even. Cheryl folded her arms like she was about to issue a parking ticket. "This pool is for residents only, and I don't recognize you. Show me your resident ID or get out." I started walking over, heart pounding. I knew how these things went. If you yelled back, you'd just feed her power. But Jessica didn't yell. She smiled. "I live here," she said calmly. "Building 14, Unit 6B. Cheryl snorted. "I've lived here 5 years. I know every homeowner, and I've never seen you. So either you're lying or you're trespassing." People began filming. You could almost hear the mental captions forming: Karen at the pool, episode 3. I wanted to step in to defend Jessica, but she gave me a tiny shake of her head. She wasn't scared. She was letting Cheryl dig her own hole. Meanwhile, Cheryl turned to the man Jessica had been talking to. "And you don't think you're off the hook either. I'll be calling security to have both of you removed." The man raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Cheryl kept going, voice rising with every word, spitting out comments that danced dangerously close to racism, talking about people like you not respecting community standards. I felt heat crawl up my neck. My fists clenched. This woman had no idea how cruel she sounded. For a split second I wondered if maybe we'd made a mistake moving here. Maybe this wasn't our kind of neighborhood after all. I hated that thought. It felt like surrender. But as Cheryl's words got nastier, as everyone stared, filming instead of helping, I felt powerless. Like no matter what we said, she'd twist it. Like reason didn't matter anymore. Jessica, though, she didn't flinch. She just exchanged a knowing glance with the man beside her, and that's when I realized something was off. He wasn't reacting like a random neighbor caught in the crossfire. He looked entertained, patient, like he was waiting for the right moment. Then Cheryl made her final mistake. She jabbed a finger toward him and said, "You seem like a reasonable man. Back me up here. You understand the importance of keeping standards high." He smiled, slowly. "Actually," he said, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." He reached into his pool bag and pulled out a leather badge holder, flipping it open so everyone could see. "I'm David Martinez, the new HOA president as of Monday." You could hear the splash of a single water drop hit the pool. That's how quiet it got. Cheryl's jaw actually fell open. David continued, calm but firm. and I've just witnessed behavior that violates our harassment and discrimination policies. Mrs. Thompson, you have no authority to question residents or remove anyone from community property. Jessica is a homeowner. You owe her an apology." The crowd gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," and another said, "She's done." Cheryl stammered, I was just following protocol." David tilted his head. "There is no protocol for treating your neighbors like criminals. What you did today was unacceptable." Jessica finally spoke, voice steady but cutting. "You didn't have to embarrass yourself like this, Cheryl. You could have just asked politely." For a moment I thought Cheryl might actually faint. Her face went through every shade of red imaginable. Then she turned, mumbling something about misunderstanding, and walked back to her chair as quietly as she could while 20 people kept filming. But David wasn't done. He stood by the pool and addressed everyone. "This isn't just about one argument. This is about the culture of our neighborhood. Too many residents have been harassed or humiliated under the guise of maintaining standards. That ends now." People clapped actual applause. Even the lifeguard nodded. I felt something shift inside me. Relief, pride, maybe hope. For the first time since moving in, I believed this community could change. David continued outlining new policies. Anyone caught harassing or intimidating others would face suspension of privileges, even fines. He thanked Jessica for her patience and said her composure had reminded him why he ran for president in the first place. As he spoke, I looked at Jessica. She was sitting at the edge of the pool, legs dangling in the water, calm as ever. She caught my eye and smiled, the kind of smile that says, "See, sometimes you just let the truth do the work." Later that evening I sat on our patio, replaying it all in my head. I thought about how close I'd been to yelling, to escalating it. How easy it is to let anger win when someone disrespects you. But Jessica had shown me something different, that staying calm doesn't mean staying silent. Sometimes the quietest person in the room wins the loudest victory. Word spread fast. By Monday, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. Cheryl didn't show up. A week later, a notice went out. She'd been temporarily suspended from using community facilities pending review. No one was surprised. Neighbors started coming up to us, people I'd never met before, sharing their own stories. She told my teenage son his music wasn't community appropriate. She reported my husband for leaving a towel on a chair. Everyone had a Cheryl story, and now they finally had someone willing to listen. David followed through. Within a month, new signs appeared at the pool. All residents welcome. Respect is mandatory. Simple but powerful. The place felt lighter, friendlier. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself for confrontation every time we stepped outside. Cheryl. She kept her head down. I'd see her sometimes walking her little dog, avoiding eye contact. Maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe she was angry. But the reign of the pool police was over. Still, I'll never forget that moment when David lifted his badge and silence swallowed the air. That's when I realized how fragile arrogance is, how quickly it shatters when truth stands up. You know, I used to think HOAs were about rules, what color you could paint your fence, how short your grass had to be. But that day taught me something different. Communities aren't built on rules, they're built on respect. And respect once lost is the hardest thing to earn back.